And my exclusive interview with Michael Jackson's father, Joe Jackson, speaks out as he rarely has before.
They treated him like Howard Hughes. Family couldn't get to him, like they should have.
This is Piers Morgan Tonight. It's hard to imagine, but it's been 3.5 years since Michael Jackson died. Millions of people around the world loved him, but of course no one knew him quite the way that his own father did. Joseph Jackson rarely gives interviews, but he joins me tonight exclusively, along with Dieter Wiesner, his former manager. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
So, Joe, I've interviewed almost every single member of your family, your wife, your sons, your daughters, Michael, and finally I get to interview the boss.
Yeah, the boss, yes.
The boss.
That's great. Yes, I'm glad to have you interviewing me because I'm going all over the world, and I just want all over the world to know me.
Everyone says the same thing about you. Very tough, but he had to be. That you wanted the best for your family, and you decided right from the start you were going to be firm, tough where you had to be, disciplined, and do what it took to give them the lives that many of them have since enjoyed. How do you respond to that?
Well, I had to be like that way because during those times it was hard, and you had a lot of gangs there, you know, in the area where we were living.
This is Gary in Indiana.
Gary, Indiana, and I had to make sure that they didn't get in any type of trouble and things of that sort.
What your children have told me, almost all of them, is that you found it hard, because you were tough with them and disciplined and wanted to be, you found it hard to be too demonstrative, to tell them too much that you love them. And some of them found that quite difficult to deal with.
Well,
let me play you an example. I interviewed Janet.
Yeah, okay.
And she said this. Watch this clip.
One time I tried to call him Dad.
And what happened?
He said no. He said no. He said, I'm Joseph. You call me Joseph. I'm Joseph to you. So your father tells you one time, you don't do it again. So I've always called him Joseph.
Sad, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I wish our relationship was different, but I know that he loves me.
So come on, why wouldn't you let your daughter call you Dad?
Well, you had all those kids running, hollering around and hollering, Dad, Dad, Dad. You know, it gets to be, sounds kind of funny to me, but I didn't care too much about what they called me, just as long as they was able to listen to me and what I had to tell them, you know, in order to make their life successful. That was the main thing. My kids was brought up in a way so they respect people, and they never was on drugs. They never went to jail. They wasn't in no gangs or nothing. They was brought up professionally and was nice, yes.
But do you have any regrets that you may have been a little bit too tough on some of them?
Well, I'm glad I was tough because look what I came out with. I came out with some kids that everybody loved all over the world, and they treated everybody right. You know, Michael, he was a nice guy, but under the world don't know anything too much about Michael as far how he was brought up. But he was brought up, I made sure that he respected the older people, yes.
Tell me about the young Michael and your relationship with him.
Michael was a type of kid, you know, he was a good kid and he's very easy to learn. And he hit one thing once and he could really do it just like the person that he listened to doing it. And by him being that way, he was able to be Michael Jackson because he looked good on stage, and when he performed, everybody loved the way he did it because he was that good.
You physically disciplined your kids. Do you think parents today are too soft on their children? Do you think there's a lack of respect because of that?
Yeah, they are too soft. One of the reasons I say that is because kids nowadays are killing their parents in some cases, and the parents say, let's get into this beating thing. There's no such thing as beating a kid. You whip them and punish them for something they did. And they will remember that. So they remember it in such a way they wouldn't do it again. That's the way I was.
It's not like that anymore. You know, many people say, well, you know, you can't hit a child. I interviewed your wife, Catherine, and she said this about you.
I didn't think he was too tough, but back in those days, everybody raised their children about the same. If you did something wrong, it was terribly wrong, you got a scolding for it, and you also got a licking, as they called it. But today you can't do that. So Michael looked back at those times and he said he was abused.
You know, in those days, kids was real bad, and the parents should have made sure, what I did, made sure that my kids was good kids. Made sure that they understood what I was trying to do. But since Michael got grown and has kids of his own, he understands that what I...
When you see them, does it take you back to when your kids were young? Do you see Michael in them?
In Blanket, I do.
Really?
Yeah, in Blanket, I see Michael there, yes. And, but they're good kids. They're being handled well, and Catherine was really looking at those kids, and they love their grandma. Yes, they really love her, and they obeys her, too.
Where were you when you heard that Michael had died?
I was in Las Vegas. I got a call, Pierce. I got a call from a fan, and it says, "Mr. Jackson, say something is wrong. Say I see an ambulance there at Michael's place, and the ambulance took off, and the fire department following the ambulance. Something is wrong."
What did you do when you heard that after you took the call?
Well, the saddest part about the whole thing was Michael tried to reach me. He says, "Call my father." This is before he passed. He would know how to get me out of this. But they didn't get in touch with me. They said they couldn't find me, but I was right there. And what bothers me, when he called for my help, I couldn't help him.
What was your relationship like with Michael towards the end? Because there was a sense that he was surrounded by people that were kind of keeping the family away, and that the family couldn't get to him how they wanted to.
That's very true. You know, he was like, well, they treated him like Howard Hughes. You know, family couldn't get to him like they should have. And I think that was very wrong for that to happen. But I guess that they had a motive to keep family away, but I guess because they was saying to the fact that too many families hanging around may cause some type of a disturbance. But what we're trying to do with this young man, yes.
This huge concert tour that he had lined up, 50 concerts, knowing him as you did, do you think he was physically capable of doing that number of shows? Did you know he was doing that number of shows?
Yes, I did know he was doing that number of shows. And it was a reason why. It was a motive for those shows, because Michael was going to take that money and build a children's hospital. That's what he wanted to do, to build for all the sick kids there. He needed to make sure they had the right type of help.
When you speak about Michael with children like that, I can't not ask you about the court cases which scandalized his later years. As his father, how did you feel when he was accused of abusing children?
Well, you know, there was a reason why that happened, and they was trying to take control over Michael's life. Michael's paid out a lot of money. You know, what is it, something like $22 million, you know, to keep this thing hushed down.
Do you wish he'd never done that?
I wish he had never done that, but since he done it, the media, you know, didn't grab it as much as it did because it was hushed up. But Michael was afraid of the media because they would never get nothing right, you know.
Did Michael, at any stage, did his behavior ever worry you around children? And the reason I ask you is, a lot of people felt, here's a man in his 40s, mid-40s, having sleepovers with young boys. And most people would think that's inappropriate. Michael wasn't a normal guy. Everybody knows that. But did you ever worry that the perception of what he was doing wasn't good for him or his image?
Well, Pierce, Michael was a big old kid himself. He was still had the mind of a kid. But he loved kids so much, and things that he didn't have, he tried to help them to have it.
You never saw anything that concerned you?
That's nothing concerned him. Because
you never felt...
We knew Michael.
Right.
We knew our son. We knew how we raised him. And we knew that, yes.
Let's take another break. Let's come back and talk more about Michael, more about his legacy, more about him as a businessman. I'll talk to you about that after the break. Michael's business side in a moment. I just want to ask you one thing, Joe. Do you wish you'd been able to do more for Michael towards the end? Do you wish you'd been able to get in there, get him away from these drugs, get him away from all the doctors?
I tried very hard, and many times, but I couldn't get to him. Just like I told you earlier, that they treated him just like Howard Hughes. You know, you couldn't.
I find that a fascinating analogy, Howard Hughes. I studied a lot of Howard Hughes' life, and by the end, he was completely protected. I mean, you couldn't get past the walls to get near him. And it seemed like Michael, in his last few months, that was his life too.
Yeah. But that's the way it was, and it was hard to get to. And maybe, you know, his mother could get to him better than me, because naturally, you know, Catherine is a very good woman, and I love her much, and still do. And right now, they're trying to get my wife to divorce me. Yeah.
Really?
Yes, but that'll never happen. You know, the people that surrounded them.
When you say they, Joe, who are you talking about?
People that surrounded them, around my wife, and people that's involved with her.
Are these family members? Or any of the children?
Some are, not none of my kids, no, because they're not like that. It's other people that's around. And
they're trying to get you divorced so that they can get their hands on Michael's money, or what is it?
Well, they got motives, you know. They get, if they get Michael's mother's away from me, and then me away from the mother, then they got a free hand. Right now, I'm in their way, you know. I'm the strong one. But the point is this: there will never be a divorce. And I was with her last night.
And do you still love each other?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so if I didn't, then there would be some divorces going on, but it'll never be a divorce, Pierce. And she'll tell you that.
I mean, she did say the same to me. You've been through so much. You know?
Yeah. But that's
the problem is that Michael's empire is hugely valuable, and it will always attract sharks. Joe, thank you very much.
You take care, man.
Dita, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Joe Jackson, Dita Wednesday, and we'll be right back.